Bungie just dropped a big news article today where they gave us their opinions of the seasonal story model in Destiny 2 and how the future episodes will be less predictable. This article comes to us from GameSpot, and we have here Season of the Wish developers discuss dealing with the seasonal model becoming predictable, telling a story with a known ending, and the 15th wish. This is a spicy one, so buckle up. Destiny 2's Season of the Wish is the last time Bungie will use its seasonal content system, switching instead to a new episodic story format between its major expansions. Part of that change is a response to feedback from players that after 4 years, the seasonal approach of weekly short story missions had become stale. Yes, that is very true. It had become very repetitive and stale. Each season story followed a model that Destiny fans started to expect and anticipate, and while Destiny 2's seasonal stories have largely been thoughtful and engaging, they were also getting repetitive in their structure. Now, what I'm curious about next is, even though we are going from a seasonal model to an episodic model, exactly how are those episodes going to be different? Your initial glance at looking at them looks like it's basically we have 4 seasons in a calendar year, and now we're just going to instead have 3 extended seasons. So exactly how we lose that predictability remains to be seen, but let's continue reading. Speaking for the narrative team, we hear our audience loud and clear that the structure of our story may have become predictable, even if the story quality is still high, said lead narrative designer Jonathan Toe during a roundtable discussion of the Season of the Wish. We're working on a number of things right now that we can't explicitly share, but that involves changing up the structure so that we can pleasantly surprise you guys more frequently in the future. That's what I like to hear. Hopefully we're talking about some secret exotic missions and maybe some crazy plot twists to the story. Hopefully episodes can deliver where seasons fell short. Now let's continue reading. Instead of 4 seasons per year, each covering about 10 weeks, although sometimes more when expansions are delayed, the year after Destiny 2's next expansion, the final shape will see the periodic release of 3 episodes. Each episode will be broken into 3 acts with larger chunks of story to go with new weapons, armor, activities, and other content that seasons have included. But while Bungie has provided some information about the episode format, it still isn't spilling too many details as to how they'll work. The developers did note that they're trying to find ways to keep things fresh though. Alright, come on now Bungie, give us something to discuss here. Senior narrative designer Nico Stevens explained that part of the problem with the predictability of recent seasons is due to the dealing with live game development. A repeated structure gives Bungie a baseline to follow, allowing the studio to create content more efficiently over time and get it out to players at a consistent clip. You get better at a pattern the more often you do it, but that can have unintended side effects like making the content feel predictable. When you create a framework for how content should be made, it makes it easier to produce that content quickly because everyone's on the same page, but it can also be predictable because everyone's on the same page, he explained. So injecting more variability into those frameworks is something that we've been talking about and learning about. Very exciting, I like that. The balance between building frameworks that speed up development but making sure the game doesn't become too predictable isn't just a story problem either, design lead Brian Frank added. Those frameworks that we're talking about are a survival skill for us as developers who are on tight timelines, Frank said. We've identified that, and across multiple disciplines, that's the major danger of them, that they become predictable. And we talk frequently about surprises and delighters. It's something that comes up as terminology and discussions about what we're planning for surprises and delighters, making sure that we've covered the player expectation. With the Season of the Wish, Bungie had another challenge to deal with, the final shape. The Season of the Wish's story concerns the Destiny characters' efforts to find a way through a giant spooky portal created by the game's major antagonist, the Witness. But trailers for the final shape have made it clear that players will get through the portal, making the season's story a foregone conclusion, which it has to be a really difficult position to be in, right? You have to give people the end of a story, but then still keep them interested in what happens in the meantime. The next part reads, since Bungie reveals information about the expansions well ahead of their release, this isn't the first season the narrative team has worked on with an ending players can see coming. Writing a satisfying story with its ending already known meant recalibrating its focus to be on the characters and their relationships, Steven said. Got it, so that's Bungie's strategy, is that because we know the ending, we need to make the character development more compelling, and that's kind of where you're going to find the plot twist with this story. I've had the pleasure of working on all those seasons that have had the ending revealed for the DLC. It is difficult to not have that climactic moment at your disposal, he said, but you have to change your perspective a little bit on how you're telling that story. I think if you don't view that final season, despite it being the final season of a year, as an ending and more as like a ramp into the DLC, it structurally starts to make more sense as you're creating it, because really you're treating that DLC, Witch Queen or Lightfall or Final Shape, as that climactic moment that all this has been leading to, which is really exciting to think about, right? I'm really curious to know what's on the other side of the final shape. So in terms of, yeah, we know we're going through the portal and we're going to go confront the witness at some point, but we didn't know about Tyrannus, and we didn't know about Mara was going to change her mind about keeping her hands wrapped tightly around Crow as possible. And we didn't know that Riven was going to be a lot more amenable than she probably previously could have been. So I think to call back to telling those smaller stories relating to the characters, making sure that the step into the final shape feels meaningful, because all of these characters that you have been fighting towards that goal with are right next to you. I think those are the things we try and focus on more, which makes sense to me. Next part reads, despite not having much in the way of a climactic moment in the Season of the Wish, Bungie did take the opportunity to tie some plot threads that have been dangling for years. One of those was the 15th Wish, a story element the Destiny 2 community has been wondering about since the Forsaken expansion launched in 2018 with its raid, The Last Wish. The 15th Wish is related to Riven, the final boss of the raid, and one of the Hamakara, the strange, powerful, wish-granting creatures that populate some corner of Destiny 2's lore. When the raid was launched, players discovered 14 different wishes, essentially cheat codes. They could enter into the wall of wishes hidden in the raid, but while Destiny 2 alluded to the 15th Wish, it remained a mystery until the Season of the Witch finally revealed it near the end of 2023. The 15th Wish is something that we've been talking about for a long time, and it's been one of those things that's on the back burner, where there are plans for it, or ideas I should say rather than plans, Steven said, and it's something that has been in the back of our minds for a long time, and we were just waiting for the best opportunity to bring that forward. Personally, I liked that they brought back the 15th Wish into the story to finally close off that loose end. Did it feel a bit forced, maybe? I'll leave you to decide that in the comments. One of the struggles of live development, Toe said, was that ideas sometimes have to wait. You don't always get to do everything you want to do right away, he said. It takes a lot of collaboration, it takes the right timing, it takes the right release to have the right mood for doing an idea that you've had for a long time. Bringing back the 15th Wish wasn't something Bungie did on a whim though. There was a lot of caution there about what it would mean to revisit the 15th Wish and sort of how high the stakes were to pay that off for players. And so yeah, I love how this came together, and it was something that was given life by the community in a lot of ways, and sort of fourth wall breaking for us to weave it back in. There's the example of the loot cave and the grasp of avarice, where the community's interest in that topic sort of drove us to bring it back into the story of Destiny in a way that I think is really satisfying for the players to feel almost like a part of it. But while the Season of the Wish brought answers to some long-standing Destiny 2 questions, it opened up new possibilities as well. The final shape will conclude the story Destiny started when it launched back in 2014, now called the Light and Darkness Saga, but there are plot threads that will carry into the future, like those that will feed into the game's upcoming episodes. Though the Season of the Wish took players back to the Dreaming City and dealt with characters related to the time-looping curse that first befell the location at the end of the Last Wish raid, the curse is still in place, even though Riven, the curse's creator, is once again dead and gone. The Hamakara's wish is so powerful that nothing Destiny 2's characters have yet found can break it. But that's a story Bungie can still address in the future, Toe said. There are 2 extra plot threads that Season 23 left us with, which are that Riven and Tyrannus have children. They are the most obvious route for other Hamakara stories, should we choose to pursue them in the future, he said. There's also a couple of characters in our cast, like Petra and Crow, who still care a lot about the Corsairs that are stuck in the Dreaming City curse, who might one day need something as powerful as an Hamakara to help them. Well, that's a huge hint. We have some idea where Destiny 2's story is headed in the final shape, but we know a lot less about where the story is headed afterwards, whether in this year's episodes or beyond. Season of the Wish highlights that there are lots of stories Bungie has yet to tell in Destiny 2, leaving a lot of possibilities for the future. Alright, so there you have it, Bungie spilling the beans a little bit on episodes coming in the final shape. They should be less predictable, and they will clearly focus more on character development. Let me know what you think about the story down in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. Smash the like button and save this video. I'll see you in the next one.